Hey everybody, it's Justin. I just finished week 1 of 52 Kinds of Love, and I wanted to share how the week went. So, the first week was dedicated to my friend Tom Tiemeyer, and there's a little drawing of a shirt there of free hugs. Now, Tom was one of my Dayton roommates at college, so I wore Dayton shirts all week as much as I could. But the free hugs is on there because, and I picked Tom because he's the kind of person who will give you a hug and show you what kind of emotion he has, no matter where he's at in any circumstance, public, in the middle of everybody. And of course, Tom delivered when I went to visit him this week. So I called him up on New Year's Day, New Year's night, and I said, "Hey, I got a couple days free. I'm going to come down and visit you." So we figured out a plan, and I made my way down on Friday, and I did a couple things in the spirit of dedicating the week to him. Number one, on the way down, I stopped at Grandpa's Cheese Barn, which has loads of free samples of cheese, and Tom is known a little bit for his mooching, so I figured in Tom's spirit I would go mooch some free samples of cheese, which I totally did. Then once I got down there, Tom picked a great place, a brew house, which I thought was very considerate because of my love for IPAs, so that was perfect, Tom, thanks. And we did a lot of storytelling on college days and how relationships change after college, which I think was important in connecting to why I picked Tom in the first place. Even though he was one of my great friends in college, I don't get the opportunity to spend a lot of time with him just because he lives 4 hours away. But I said that's kind of a BS excuse. I have the time, all I have to do is make the time. And so we talked a lot about how college relationships change and how all relationships need some sort of effort, on both ends in order to make it happen, in order to make it the best that it can be. So I think it was a good lesson, and it totally played out this week. We stayed up real late that night and just played card games and told stories and reconnected and talked about how life doesn't always go the way that you plan, but you kind of figure out new paths, and that's okay. The second day, or the next morning that I was there, I slept over. I wanted Tom to give me a tour of Cincinnati. I had not formally been introduced to downtown, even though I'd been there for a concert or a couple things. But because it was about 20, 30 minutes away, I actually followed Tom in my car, and it was actually kind of neat because we're talking on the phone, and he's in the car in front of me, and Tom's basically just telling me stories like a tour guide, and I felt like I was sitting on the back of a bus listening to the tour guide, which was kind of awesome. We got lost, got redirected because of traffic and construction and such. It was a nice little misadventure. But we went to this place called Cincinnati Union Terminal, an old train station, and there was this thing that happened. Tom was looking in the corner of this. It's a sphere. Imagine a sphere and then cut off the bottom half, so it's like a dome. And then imagine half of a dome. And so Tom's looking in this corner of this half of a dome and says, "Have your friend go to the other side of the whole dome, and you can have a conversation when you talk to the wall." So it's like if one person talked to the wall, it would just echo all the way off over this dome and end up to the person on the other side, which is pretty phenomenal. I believe, if I remember the stats right, that the dome was 106 feet tall, so I can imagine that it was even wider. So I went over into that corner, and Tom and I had this weird conversation that was bouncing back and forth along the ceiling, the walls, echoing, and it was kind of a cool reminder of how friendships and relationships work. And if you want something to happen, all you got to do sometimes is just reach out, just speak up, and things happen. You'll be heard. So that was kind of a cool lesson. And then on the way back, I called up one of my college roommates and said, "Hey, I'm actually driving past Columbus, and I was just hanging out with Tom. Why don't we try to get together?" And we did, and we ended up having lunch, and he suggested calling one of our other college roommates, so there's 3 of us, and it was just a nice moment to have with those guys and see where their life was, but also just to realize that I'd focused this week on Tom, but it spread further than that, and that was a great surprise as to how the week played out. I was making comments on a bunch of Facebook pictures that Tom and I had together, and other people started commenting below that, and it just spread the love, which is totally what this week was supposed to do. So a great first week, even though it was a short week to start off the year. Let's see what week 2 has to do for 52 Kinds of Love. Week 2 will be dedicated to... Oh, by the way, Tom's picture had free hugs. Did I say that? Yeah, Tom likes giving hugs. So, okay. Week 2 is... I dedicate this week to Austin's Renner. So you can figure out next week who Austin's Renner is. And you can figure out why there's 2 little rings there. And I'll see you next week. Bye. Peace. 52 Kinds of Love.